Right, 2020 mock exam paper, question 8 here. A modern wood-burning stove as shown, combined with a solar collector, is used to provide central heating and hot water for a two-storey house. Using notes and a single line diagram, show a typical design layout for both the central heating and the hot water system. Show two independently controlled heating zones, one in each floor, and include 3 radiators on each floor. Indicate the location of the control valves and give the typical sizes of the pipework. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I know we didn't really touch on hot and cold water, and to be honest, I wasn't really going to look at it because we have enough to answer all the other questions anyway. But what I'll do is I'll go through this question anyway, because it'll do no harm just to have a look at it, and if you were stuck you could have a go at it maybe if there was one that didn't suit you. Okay, so what we're first going to start doing is we're going to start by setting up the hot water and the cylinder, and I'll show you where the water runs in, how the water runs into your house, and where it goes into a cylinder then, and how the water is heated. Okay, so I'm going to use red biro here for hot water and a blue one for cold, and I'll use black then for just drawing in my details and stuff. Okay, now this doesn't have to be stuck down on a board drawing or anything. This can be just drawn on a sheet of paper, and you could use line paper. Use the line paper that they give you for the answer booklet. Okay, so what happens is in your hot water system you've got your tank upstairs, okay, up in your attic. You got 2 of them, so I'm going to draw a line up the top here with my attic. I'm going to draw in my 2 tanks. Okay, so you got a big tank for storing water in and supplying water to your cylinder, and you've got a small tank here that this supplies water to the stove for heating. So this is in constant circulation. So I'll go through this now as I explain it here. So what we have is we have cold water running up from the ground. So this is running into your house, and usually it goes up back of the sink. So you have your kitchen, there'll be an off flow here to your kitchen, and there'll be what we call here a stop valve. So it kind of looks like an egg timer. Okay, so basically that is just a tap that you can turn off if water's flowing in. So at the start of your house somewhere, if a pipe bursts in the house somewhere, you can go down and turn off the stop valve there. So you've got water flows in to the kitchen, or into the house, into the kitchen. You got your mains coming up, and then it all goes into a tank up here. Okay, all goes into your tank, a ball cock tank up in the attic. From there then, you got your cold water runoff. So you got a runoff here. That'll run off to all the other places you need cold water in the house. So bathroom, where else? Bathroom's mainly the only place. So it'll run to your sinks and your bath and all them kind of things. What you have then is out to the bottom of the tank. And why is the bottom of the tank? Well, obviously, if the water is filling, when the water is filling up, if you're running loads of water, the tank will be able to drop down, so you'll be still able to fill away all water. So from the bottom of the tank, you have this a line running down, and it runs down into your cylinder. So your cylinder is found obviously inside in your hot press. So most people's there, okay? And I have to run that in wrong there now. It runs out, that doesn't go there, it runs out, down, and runs into the bottom of the cylinder. Now, why does it go into the bottom of the cylinder? Well, warm water arrives, so we put in the cold water down the bottom of the cylinder. Okay, our cold water is pumped into it inside here. Okay, and what we have then is out at the top of it here, we have a hot water cylinder. We have excess hot water, goes back up. And what you do is, in order to show the pipes are overlapping, it just flows back in over the top there, just into the top of the cylinder. To show a pipe is overlapping there, you just draw it to the line, make a little curve, bring it over. I'll show you that again in a minute, okay? So that's the setup of how our water gets to our cylinder, okay? So this runs off here then, so this is going off to my bathroom as well. So this takes any hot water off anywhere else out to the bathroom as well, okay? So see there, I've looped it up over my cold pipe and I've brought it into wherever it's going, okay? So this is my that's my setup there for my hot and cold water. So this is how the water runs around the house, okay? So obviously the only thing is we need to heat up this water now. So this cold water gets into the cylinder and that hot water comes out the top. So where does the water go from then is the question. So what we have here is, where will we start? So we have a solar cell heating it, and we also have a wood burning stove. Okay, so a wood burning stove could be, they might change it to an aisle stove, they might change it to central heating. It'll all be the same, okay? So what we have is, we have our wood burning stove out here. We're going to drain our stove out here somewhere. Okay, I'm going to say that's my stove there. Now, from our other tank, we have our stove. So we have a stop valve on it when it comes out of the tank. Same here, so it's going to come out here and it's coming out again at the bottom of the tank, okay? And it's going to run down into the top of my stove. Now, why is it going into the top of my stove? Actually, does it? No, it goes into the bottom of the stove because the heat is coming from the bottom of the stove. So it runs down and connects into the bottom of my stove here. Okay, now I have a stop valve on this as it comes out again. Okay, so it runs into the bottom of the stove here. Now what we need to do is, we need to send, cold water comes in, heats up. Where does this go? This goes to two places now. This goes to my cylinder to heat my water in my house. So the hot water comes out here. Hot water coming out here. It's going to run into the top of my cylinder because it's hot. Inside the cylinder then, what you have is, you have a copper coil. So it's basically a big bunch of pipes that coil around like that. Okay, so this isn't putting hot water in here at all, if that makes sense. What's happening here is the hot water is flowing through these pipes in here, and what it's doing is it's heating up the water that's inside in this tank. So this is a closed system. Okay, so the water is always just recycled here. So it goes in, heats up this water, and obviously as it rushes down through it, then it comes out the bottom. It comes out cold. Okay, so it runs back out there, back down, and connects back into the base of my stove there. Okay, and we've got a little runoff here if we ever wanted to drain out the water out. Okay, so hot water comes out of the top of the stove, runs across, runs up, runs into my cylinder, spirals around inside there, heats the water that's in the cylinder, runs back out, down, and back into the stove again cold. Okay, this water is very rarely used. This tank is, in the amount of water in it, it's only going to top up a little bit that we lose through evaporation, but mainly it's just the same water is flowing around inside there. Also coming out off of that hot water there is a return back to the tank again. So any excess water that there's too much, it just goes back up and flows back into the tank. Okay, so that's how we heat the water in the cylinder. Okay, that runs off out to our bathroom and etc. wherever. Now we got a stove here that's heating radiators. Let me have a look here. So layout for central heating and the hot water system. Show 2 independently controlled heating zones, 1 on each floor, and include 3 radiators on each floor. Indicate the location of the control valves and give the typical sizes of the pipework. Okay, so I'm gonna put a floor out here. So that's my attic up there. Here's one floor. Here's my first floor. We've got 1 radiator, 2 radiators, 3 radiators, 1 radiator, 2 radiators, 3 radiators. Okay. So we have 2 independent heating zones. Okay, so what does that mean? We have 2 places to heat our water. So for argument's sake, if I wanted to heat the first floor only, I'd have my coil running off there and I'd be able to shut off the water going to the ground floor. Or vice versa, if I wanted to shut off the water flowing down here, I wanted to heat the water up here only. Okay, so what happens is the water flows out at the top of my stove and it splits. Okay, now all these radiators are running independent of each other. So what that means is we're going to have a flow of water here that's going to flow right across all these, and it's going to flow into the last one, it's going to flow into the middle one, and it's going to flow into the first one. Okay, all off the same one. It doesn't go from one to the other. Okay, so that means I can turn off this radiator, I can still heat these ones. Okay, once it gets to the end radiator, the water is going to be cold. It's going to be coming back out cold out of all these radiators. So it's going to return then back down, and it is going back into the base of the stove on this side. Okay, why did I draw that line down there? Don't know why that line is there now. Okay, now obviously if it's coming out of here, then it's going to come out of this one, overlap the hot water, and same here, down, overlap the hot water and into the cold. So I could turn off this radiator here, hot water still flow to this one, and it's still all be able to return down through here. Oh, I know why I brought that line down there then, sorry. That should loop over there. Then we have our second one just running down to the basement, or down to the ground floor, runs out to the end, into the end of them, into the start, and then we got the one running out at the back. And that links back in then to my cold one from there. Okay. So hot water out, I want to be able to control my what part of the house I heat up. So I'm going to have a stop valve here, so I can turn this off so I can heat the bottom, and I also have a stop valve here. There's no need to have a stop valve on the cold water, because if it's not flowing into the hot, it won't return to it won't be able to go back through the cold anyway. Okay. Now, the other thing we have there is we can have a digital box here, okay, that runs down into these stop valves. Okay, and they come back to thermostats. Okay, thermostat 1, thermostat 2. Okay, so what that does is I can control the heat. So I can set this thermostat to 20 degrees. If it gets too hot, this can come down here, this box here can shut them off. Okay, that's the water into my hot and cold. Stop valves there and there. That fella, we've got a runoff here to drain the tank. And we got our stove burning there. Don't think there's much more to that really. If there's any other questions, have a look at it there. If there are any questions, send them to me and I can do I'll answer them for you. Okay. What else? Oh yeah, combined with a solar collector. Okay. So the solar collector is mainly used for heating the water. Okay. Water in our cylinder. Okay. The central heating is all done by our wood burning stove. Okay. So what do we have in our solar cell? So our solar cell is up on the roof. Okay. Solar cell is up here on the roof. I'm just going to draw it in as a box. Okay. So the solar cell is going heating the water. So we need cold water going into the solar cell. So it's going to be a closed circuit. It's a completely closed circuit. So we get no, we don't have water. We'll have hot water coming out of our solar cell, out of the top of it. It's going to come down, and same as our coil inside in the cylinder, it's going to come into the bottom of it. It's going to heat the water at the bottom. It's going to come back out then. Pop back out then. It's going to run up. It's coming back into the base of our solar cell. So that's a continuous cycle there. Now, what we have is we'll have a pump on that there. That'll pump the water around. Okay. That's our pump there. And what that'll do is that'll pump all our water around. And here then we'll have a runoff. Sorry, a runoff out here for draining the system with a stop valve on it. And that's pretty much it then. Okay. So a solar cell, solar panel, that they all run into the bottom of it with a pump on it, and it's continuous cycling of water. Same with our stove over here. The stove pumps the water into our radiators, goes into one, comes out into cold, back around, so continuously looping around. That's pretty much full marks then. That question. Oh, the sizes of the pipework. Okay. So we're going to have 3/4 inch, entering. And then we've got 1/2 inch flowing around the house. Okay, and that's pretty much how you lay out that question and answer that question if it was to come up. There's not really much else they could ask you in comparison to that, as in they couldn't really change that question much. And that's the way it's going to be really laid out if it pops up. Part B here then is using notes and freehand sketches. Describe 2 safety features to ensure the system operates safely at all times. Discuss the importance of each safety feature outlined. Okay, so I'm going to have a look here now. I'm going to go down through it this way maybe. Again, as I said, give me some feedback on it, whichever way you think is best. So we've got 2 features described. You get 2 by 8 marks. 4 marks for a note, 4 marks for a sketch, and 4 marks for discussion. Okay, so possible answers. To the thermostatic control of the burning rate. So thermostatic control of the burning rate based on temperature of water in the boiler where appliances use a boiler. Thermostatic radiator valves should be wired electronic to provide boiler interlock. Okay, so wiring in your thermostatic valves into your boiler so that they're always relaying information back to each other. So you have a hot water cylinder, you have your thermostatic control fitted about 1/3 of the way up the cylinder. Should have clean contact with the metal on the cylinder. Avoids overheating and thus ensuring safe temperatures of waters in the taps. Thermostat should be accessible as possible. The cylinder thermostat should be wired to provide a boiler interlock. Okay. Vent valve to boiler, a safety feature that stops too much pressure from damaging the plumbing systems and causing injury to a person. So that's why we have our stop valves and our runoff valves. Helps to prevent the risk of an explosion due to build-up of pressure. Ease of cleaning maintenance. The opening for this purpose should have a rigid, non-combustible and gas-tight cover or removal section in condensing type appliances, etc. Carbon monoxide. The heating appliance must be correctly installed and serviced at regular intervals to ensure efficient combustion and removal of products of combustion. A carbon monoxide alarm to be fitted in the vicinity of burning appliances. Detector should have both a visible and audible alarm to alert occupants of the presence of carbon monoxide. The expansion of hot water. An expansion pipe provided to allow safe expansion of water. Vented system. Closed system incorporates expansion vessels to allow for expansion. So that's these pipes here that run back up into our cylinder here, or up into our tanks. So if there's excess water, when water heats and it expands, it pops up, it'll flow in here rather than building up pressure and leaking everywhere. Pressure release valve, often fixed on the boiler as near or as possible to the boiler. A spring-loaded valve releases water if there's build-up of pressure. Pressure gauge indicates pressures in bars. Okay, and that's all our safety features there. As I said, there's a lot of them there. They're just learning them off and kind of giving a quick explanation of them and giving a bit of a sketch with them as well. Part C then asks us using notes and freehand sketches. Show 2 design considerations that should be taken into account when selecting a preferred location for both the chimney and the stove. Discuss the importance of each consideration outlined. 2 design considerations and then 2 by 6 marks. So we get 3 marks for the note and 3 marks for the sketch. So the stove to be located on internal wall to maximise thermal mass of chimney stack and heat retention and to maximise dispersal of heat. Okay, so that basically means keeping the stove on an internal wall, and because that way then any heat going either side of the stove is going out into the rest of the house, rather than if you have it on an external wall it's going out. Mind you, it seems more common nowadays to kind of have them on an external wall for aesthetic purposes, that they're away out of the place and they don't take up space. But from an efficiency point of view, you're better off having them in the middle of the house because the chimney stack will heat up and release heat back into the rooms. Chimney centrally located and near to a bathroom to avoid wasting water. So the closer they are together, the less pipes you have to run, so the less water is going to be wasted. and the less heat it'll lose traveling around. Stove, you may use system built chimney or connected to new build or existing chimney. So you may build in a new stove, or you may replace the fireplace that's there and put in a stove instead. Prefabricated chimney system should be insulated and double walled. Metal chimney system passing through any part of the building should be encased in non-combustible material. Forms of a focal point for the dwelling. If a back boiler is incorporated into design, it may reduce the amount of pipe work to radiators. Okay, so if you have them close enough, you'll be able to put the back boiler in and send the heat around, and it's close up. And then any other appropriate answers, if you have them, are suitable as well. Okay, so if you have any questions on that, lads, let me know and I'll answer them as best I can.